my technical difficulties over here kind of put us behind with the guests. They're patiently waiting on the line, listening to the show.
Yeah. Hey, let's get them on.
Let's get to them, dude. Yeah.
So we have Andrew Pombre on. Of course, we've had Andrew on quite a few times. Andrew has actually co-hosted the show with me before. And then we also interviewed Ben Swan together. That was fun.
Ben Swan, right?
Yes. And Andy Estep and Jared Dalen from the 14th Amendment Center. How's it going, guys?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Can you
hear me?
Yes. Yeah,
Thanks
we
for
can.
having us on.
Of course.
Beautiful.
Run it.
Anybody else on here with me?
Yep. I think we have 6 of us on all together now, so this should be interesting.
6 on the line.
What's up? What's up, guys?
Hey.
What's up, buddy? How you doing, buddy?
Good. How's everybody doing?
That sounds so familiar. I don't know, man.
Doing fine.
Good. Thank you. All right.
Sorry to keep you guys waiting.
No problem. We're entertained by you guys.
Yeah, at least you get to listen to something. It's not like some shitty, on hold music, elevator music.
I gotta say that Joe Rogan clip was that's one of the best clips I've ever heard of Joe Rogan. I missed that show of his, but that was a really good clip. Like that, I give that rant like 5 times a week.
Fucking right, dude. Fucking right. Well, dude, the thing is, man, I can't play any George Carlin or Bill Hicks anymore because YouTube is hitting me with copyright. So they don't fuck with me with Joe Rogan.
Fucking gay.
That somewhat has to do with what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yes, and I'm excited for that. We got a lot to talk about.
I think Andrew said he was going to start us off here. Unless you guys have any questions or anything you want to start us off with.
We'll let Andrew take the floor.
All right.
He's been on here many times, so.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know where to start. I guess I'll just say that over the past maybe 8 or 9 months, something like that, a few of us have kind of gotten to know each other basically through our own studies and reading the book The Red Amendment and just kind of talking to each other online, and we basically got together. Basically Byron, Antoine Wesley, Jared Dalen, Andy Estep, we all kind of got together, and we decided that we need to do something for freedom, something more that is more user-friendly, people can have more access to, materials to research, and just make things easier to understand. So we came up with the idea for the 14th Amendment Center, and that kind of just started, and we're building it right now, and basically that goes into how we're going to go into how to expatriate, correct your status, and basically leave the slave system known as United States citizenship. And that's basically what the 14th Amendment Center is all about. I know you've had one other individual on the show talk about the 14th Amendment, and I've talked about it before as well. And just been my focus now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's the only one that can talk about the 14th Amendment, guys.
Right. He has a trademark, I believe. All right, so go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, so that for me, that's been my focus. I mean, what I always tell people is, if you're an activist or if you care about freedom or anything like that, once you learn the 14th Amendment, you can't unlearn it. So in other words, whatever it is you're doing, if you really study it and you really look into it, there's no other avenue that you can really take. Because if you're a writer for a website or whatever it is that you're doing, when you understand, what happened in the Civil War, even pre-Civil War, and then what happened in Reconstruction, once you learn that, everything becomes obvious. Any news article you read, you say that's the 14th Amendment. Almost anything that happens, you can say, well, that's because of the 14th Amendment. And when I tell certain people that, they don't believe me or they don't really understand it. And that's basically where we're trying to come in. We're trying to make things easier for people to understand. We want to have all sorts of, we're going to have a website with different sites from different law journals. And, the amount of material that's actually available is endless. So
It really is.
Yeah, some people say, I don't understand law, I don't understand this, I don't understand that, but law is one of the easiest things to learn, in my opinion, because it's just looking up a definition, in a law dictionary. If you have any questions about a law, it's right there in front of you, and then you just look up the definitions of that particular law. But again, you have to understand the context and the intent,
Right.
And that's where the 14th Amendment comes in. If you can't understand the intent of the 14th Amendment, then you'll never understand how we've been enslaved, basically.
All right. This is Andrew, right, Andrew? Andrew?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course it is.
Question.
You can't tell that voice.
It's been a long time.
You've
Hi,
been
Andrew.
sleeping
How
all
are you
day.
doing, buddy? I have not been sleeping all day. It's been a long time. Question. So I guess a lot of the people at home, they're confused right now because they're thinking the 14th Amendment, wait, that has to do with slavery. What are you talking about? So is it the original 14th Amendment was changed when Abraham Lincoln took power, and so is that what?
No.
Is that okay?
No.
The 14th
14th
Amendment,
Amendment basically created U.S. citizenship.
Yes.
Before the Civil War, everybody in the states were considered citizens of their state. And it was kind of like an abstract by proxy national citizenship, but nobody ever really used that. So the 14th Amendment reversed that, and that's pretty much the main premise. I'll let you continue, Andrew. Go ahead. This is Andy, by the way. What's up, everybody?
All right. Hi, Andrew.
What's up, Andy?
Chill.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And just to kind of expand on that, now when people say, it's about slavery, everyone sort of thinks that it freed the slaves, but it's the exact opposite. Now remember, anything the government does or tells you, they're actually doing the opposite. And so although the 14th Amendment contains no language really about slavery, what it actually did was it gave you a political status, part of the body's politic, which made you a slave because you're a subject to the foreign, illegitimate jurisdiction of the United States. The United States is a creation, and it was basically created by, I guess you could call it color of law. Because before that, before the 14th Amendment, before the Civil War, the United States was basically America, a landmass. The 13 colonies, a union, a confederation, and each state is a country. Like going back to what Andy said about, a state citizen status. Although I don't really like the word state citizen because people confuse it with today's meaning of it, which is kind of irrelevant. But so yeah, it does have everything to do with slavery. It makes every U.S. citizen a subject, which is basically a slave, and that's the legal term of subject is basically a slave. So
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there's a lot more to it. Basically, they claim that the 14th Amendment abolished state citizenship. So everybody that at that time that was a state citizen, it took their nationality, which was of the state. You think about it. The colonies, there was 13 of them, right? And they declared independence. Well, what did they become when they declared independence? They didn't become a federal union. They became independent nations. They had to be in order to confederate under the Articles of Confederation. And that's basically the heritage, that's the foundation of the real history of America, and our premise is based on that. Helping people find that information, helping, aggregate it into something tangible, because it is a lot to take in. It's taken us all over a year or more of studying this just to get to this point. But when you look at, court records, anything after the 14th, Amendment was instituted, the 14th Amendment is the most cited amendment ever, even since the inception of the Supreme Court. Everything goes back to the 14th Amendment. How is everything, the federal government does is subjected under the 14th Amendment. So, all right, go ahead, Andrew. I'm sorry to cut in there on you.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, they can't justify anything they do without the 14th Amendment because it gives them jurisdiction over all the state sovereignty. And kind of going into, like, for instance, we'll say, the 10th Amendment Center. Sort of the idea of the 14th Amendment Center, it didn't come from the 10th Amendment Center, but we gave it the name the 14th Amendment Center because, the 10th Amendment Center kind of encourages this idea that being a United States citizen, you have all these rights protected under the Bill of Rights, and, you have access to the 10th Amendment, but that's not actually true. As a U.S. citizen, you don't have rights under the Bill of Rights, and if you claim that, I mean, we can go into that after, you're basically claiming that you support genocide and war and all that, but the point is, those rights don't exist. When you claim to be a U.S. citizen, you claim to have basically no self-responsibility. You have no rule over yourself. You need a babysitter, basically. And that's exactly how the law looks at it. You're claiming to be a U.S. citizen. You have privileges, benefits, franchises. You do not have access to the Bill of Rights. It's basically, that's why we say de jure versus de facto. It's legal, lawful, but the de facto United States government, it's recognized as lawful because we recognize it as lawful. So in other words, like the law of nations will recognize it saying, well, it's not really legitimate, but the people are legitimizing it for the U.S. citizenship.
Recognized through consent.
Through consent, exactly.
Right. I think another way to put it is that during the Civil War, they departed from the constitutional procedure. Now, they totally kind of, went off the cuff, and that's why when we say de facto, that's what we mean. It means a government by fact, not by right.
Right.
And, so now, now they're still posing as this 1790 constitutional government, which, in the 1860s, it totally changed. And it is considered an insurgency under, certain definitions. But they've done a lot of work to, kind of cover that up.
Well, that's a good point. If I can real quick, that was actually a good point, because if you go back and look at law dictionaries, you'll of course, definitions in law tend to change over time. That's true. But if you go back to like 1852, is it 1852 Bouvier's? I mean, you go back and look at those definitions and how they've evolved. And a lot of that, I think, is just them deliberately changing definitions so that in modern times we can't, or the average person isn't going to go back and look at an 1852 dictionary to say, well, what's this legal meaning? What did it mean then? Because, again, that's how you get the intent of the lawmaker. And that's why it's so hard to put all these things together, because you have to look at the perspective of, like you said, the insurgency, because that's what they are. They're just posers.
All right.
It's like,
Okay. Andrew,
I have a question for you. Say you actually do this and you relinquish your citizenship and you go through all this and you do what you have to do. I know I'm skipping a few questions here, but how will the judge actually take you seriously, or will he just compare you to the whole sovereign citizen, bullshit? I mean, won't the judge find this offensive and say, look, I am a control freak. I have an order in my court. This is my court, and you are my property, and I don't care what you have to say, and I'm going to make you follow the law and throw you in jail anyway. Will you really be able to have control of more freedom in that sense? Stand up against the court, and if you go in there against the judge, will they actually give a shit that you relinquished your citizenship and all that?
Well, I can't speak for everybody, but I will say this. Most judges, and people don't like when I say this, but a lot of judges that at least have an idea about the law, they will follow the law. Now, I'm not saying that that's in every single case, because that's just not it. But I know for a fact that most cases of state nationals or nationals of a state, they don't get heard in front of the judge, and they're administrated basically without having to be in the courtroom, because they can't really, you can't have your case be heard. I mean, obviously, if you commit, harm, or if you steal, or, theft, common law crimes, if you will, those are different, because, again, the courts are private, and they only have jurisdiction over United States citizens.
Would this be, in a sense, like an illegal alien doing a crime or something, you're saying?
Well, I wouldn't compare it to an illegal alien.
Right.
I mean, I think I could touch on this for a minute. I mean, you guys have met Mr. Bork, right?
Right.
He claims to have been under this status for over 20 years, right? And that's one of the big things we see is that, when does this happen to him or any of these people? We know, I would say, a few dozen people that have done this, and they actually file their paperwork, it's a declaration of intent, of their intent to claim the nationality of one of the original states. And, there's a lot to that, but we won't get into that. Anyway, Mr. Bork, has not been apprehended or, courts haven't sovereigned him or anything like that. That's one thing that gives us a lot of reassurance about this. Another aspect is there's many people that have been out for many years, from what we understand, Another aspect I really see is that they all file with many agencies, and you challenge all the contracts and whatnot, right? But they file with the IRS, telling them about the action they've taken, telling them about, now they're no longer, they're exempt or whatever you call that. They're accepted. They're not U.S. citizens. That's what the tax law says. U.S.
Right.
citizens are subject to assessment. Anyway.
Well, let me add to that. Like,
I was going to continue, but go ahead.
No, go ahead. Just finish what you're saying.
All right. I was going to say, so they file with the IRS, right? Very legit legal paperwork stating what they've done, and they claim a caveat that if you don't respond in 90 days, that you've accepted the terms and whatnot, and they never respond. Now, we know how the IRS are. If they think there's people out there and they're not getting a couple dimes out of those people and they're owed those dimes, they're just let them go. See, we believe that the government knows about this and they believe it's somewhat legitimate, and they're afraid to bring people in the court to, because these people do study law. You can't hire a lawyer as a state national. It's part of the, contract you've entered into. Just like everything else, DMV. We heard people were talking about right to travel, right? Well, that is a natural right. You have a right to freely travel. But when you accept U.S. citizenship, it's like a contract. And all these government rules and statutes and codes are terms and conditions of that contract. So, if you want to drive as a U.S. citizen, obviously you got to go to the DMV and pay the extortion fees and whatnot. Anyway, think about that, though. The IRS has gotten these letters from hundreds of people probably. And they're just, we don't need that money, right? That was the point I wanted to make about that, the filing with the IRS. And, none of these people have ever been contacted beyond that correspondence. All right, go ahead, Andrew, if you were going to.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I'm good.
Like, Jeff was, Jeff, let me help. Like, this is the thing. Like, Andy made two great points, because there's only, if you're a good person who's not out committing crimes, there's really only two ways you're ever going to end up in court as a national of a state. And that's traveling in your automobile, or for some reason the IRS coming after you. Now, like Andy said, there's no way the IRS is going to come after you because only U.S. citizens are taxpayers.
Oh man, he's got some gas or something.
Oh, poor kid.
All right. Well,
but I mean, the way we understand it, if they're ever charged, send a summons or whatever, they could pretty much rebut the challenge a jurisdictional challenge just by sending a copy of their statement of intent. And they'll never have to show up in court in most cases. Like Andrew was saying, if somebody commits a murder as a national of a state, you're not going to be exempt from prosecution, obviously, because that's a malum in se, if you guys are down with all that Latin mumbo-jumbo. But most of these petty, arbitrary laws are malum prohibitum, wrong by prohibition. Wrong because somebody wrote it down and said it was. So,
Right.
I mean, that's my take on that whole angle. Go ahead.
I just want to sum it up here. If you choose to go this route, what do you have to relinquish? You have to relinquish your social security number. What are the pros and cons here? I mean, you're saying if you do become a citizen of just your state instead of the United States of America, you can still have your driver's license. You can still drive state to state. You won't be bothered. And what are you giving up by giving up your citizenship?
You're not going to have. See, this is the thing, okay? When you're a national of a state, you don't need a driver's license. You don't need Social Security. And here's why. A license is something you need if you intend to do something that's illegal. And if you don't believe me, go look up the definition of license. Now, you only need to license things if you're doing business with the state, because the state is the one writing those laws. So they're saying this would be illegal, but we're making it legal. So we have to give you this license, and then you accept those terms of the contract. With driving, the terms of the motor vehicle code. Now, if you don't have a driver's license, you're not a U.S. citizen, then you'd be under, I call it common law or natural law. So if you're out driving down the road without insurance and you kill somebody, well, guess what? You don't have the insurance to basically be your limited liability. That's all insurance is limited liability, saying that you don't want to be responsible for the death of a child in a school zone because you were driving irresponsibly.
So what happens if you don't have your insurance and you're national and not a U.S. citizen, and that happens? Can they still put you in jail? Do they still hold you accountable?
If you kill somebody?
Yeah.
Well, of course. I mean, it's going back to what Andy said. I mean,
what if you get pulled over and a cop wants to see your license and registration and all that shit, and you tell him, I'm not a U.S. citizen, I'm a national of my state, and I don't have to give you my license? Is he going to give you a summons anyway and arrest you and give you shit?
Yeah, they could.
Yeah, they absolutely could. But again, we advocate that you don't speak to the police.
Okay. Right.
Never speak to the police, because the police is not the law. You know what I mean? So, and again, going back to what Andy said, everything that is done, you're filing. You're already giving them a notice ahead of time. The DMV in Washington D.C., the Secretary of the State, they're all on notice.
So Andrew, every time I get pulled over by a policeman, I just have to not say a word. It's going to piss him off, and he's going to put me in handcuffs and take me to the station every time just for something stupid. That's going to be a huge inconvenience. I'm just saying, I understand what you're saying, but isn't there any way to make it more efficient, I guess, and not be an inconvenience every time? Because, I mean, it's bad enough right now, dude. They pull you over something stupid, and they make you wait 20 minutes before they write you a freaking ticket.
Well, I have the perfect answer for that.
Okay.
I can't be free if you're not free. That's Byron says that all the time.
Yep. I saw he posted that today.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So what that means is what we're doing at the 14th Amendment Center is trying to rebuild the nations so that we can all be free. Because if I'm driving down the road every single day, or should I say traveling down the road every single day, and Officer Bob wants to keep pulling me over because I don't have license plates or I have a not-for-hire plate, he's going to keep harassing me every single day because he's going to know my vehicle. But if 300 other people in my town are doing it, who are the cops going to pull over? It's not about that. It's not about battling with the police. It's about claiming freedom and rebuilding it, rebuilding each nation.
Right. That is the police harassing you is a big part of the point of the whole action. And you guys are right though. That is a big concern for current nationals. And it is mainly because there's so few of them and there's so little understanding about this.
So it's going to be your job to be like activists, to take the brunt of the heat and the abuse, just to teach everyone else that they should be free.
We're not trying to be martyrs. We're trying to raise awareness so everybody kind of knows what was done to America, to our heritage, and so that we can all work towards fixing this. And we see this as the only way to fix this.
I like what you're saying.
I don't know how many politicians we can hire to try to fix this.
Right.
But it's not going to happen, you know?
Right.
But,
So, guys,
but part of the point is that, you know... I'm getting some...
Whoever's not talking, I suggest you... Whoever's
sorry,
not talking, you should mute your mic if you can. Mute your phone if you can, if you're not talking. Just to cut down on the distortion in sound. Because we have 6 people on the line.
Right. Well, I'm trying here. I'm trying to fit in a question here, so.
But yeah, I mean the whole driving thing is a concern. I know I have one friend who's been a national for 4 years, 5 years, and he says what he does is drives a friend who's a U.S. citizen's vehicle or truck, I should say, and leaves their plates and stuff on. So he said hasn't had a problem, and his whole theory is that if he gets pulled over, he'll keep, most of these people keep some sort of documentation to tell them who they are, whatnot. But, he says he's not going to, fight with the police. That's just stupid, Let them arrest them and then fight them in court. And if they bash you, whatever, and you live through it, you sue the fuck out of them down the road and get a huge settlement. Because as a citizen, they bash you either way. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Oh, they're going.
A lot of people are smart about this, and they'll notify the sheriff's department. I'm this person. Well, they're not a person, you know what I'm saying. My name is so-and-so. I'm a national of this state. I have a right to drive. I'll be driving without a license or registration or any of that extortion bullshit you require.
Chris, hold on a second, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really bad, man.
Yeah, so if I can just add to that a little bit, because, everybody I talk to, their first question is, well, because obviously it's just, even if you don't know anything about the law, and you say, well, you're not going to be a U.S. citizen, the first question that always comes to mind for people is they're worried about their driving. Now, let me just get into something real quick. I have been caught, and I'm still a U.S. citizen. I have been caught more than 11 times without a driver's license. I've been caught without a driver's license in my pickup truck with my mom's license plates from a Ford Taurus on a F-250, with no insurance and no registration, none of it. I've been caught like that as a U.S. citizen, and I've won in court. Now, and that was when I was younger, when I had very little legal understanding. Now, if you can do that as a U.S. citizen, as a slave, you can do that as a national of a state where you have the standing. It's all about your standing and your status, because again, courts can only hear certain matters. So, like Andy said, if you're a national of a state, that means you're responsible. You study the law, and again, that's what we're trying to do at the 14th Amendment Center is help it make it easier for people to do that. So you're going to have this documentation with you, and you're not going to, maybe you'll show it to the police, maybe not. My theory is, say nothing to the police, and then when you go into court, you're going to have all your notices, you're going to have your briefing, and you're not going to see a judge. You're going to be dismissed.
Okay.
And then at that point, go ahead.
No. I get what you're saying. So there's going to be some resistance, but it might be worth it. So that's the negative aspect. So what are the positive aspects? How do I say, for instance, if I want to go into business and the people that I want, if I want to work for myself, and I need a Social Security number to get paid, how do I get around that if I'm not? And second, I obviously won't have to be paying taxes. Apparently, that's the whole perk from this. I don't have to pay income tax to the IRS, Social Security tax, Medicare, whatever the fuck. How do I get around that? I mean, if I don't have a Social Security number.
That's one of the smallest perks, actually. But I mean, there's cases where they can't discriminate. An employer can't discriminate against somebody based on their nationality. That's in the actual, discrimination acts and whatnot. And we know of a few people that have taken that angle. Companies reviewed them. They told them, we want to get hired, but the only thing we can't get past is this. You don't have a. So And they brought that up, and they were able to file an exemption form with the IRS. The IRS obviously agrees with them because, as far as we know, these people still work those jobs.
Okay,
but, I mean,
so
there's a lot.
Not
we're
just
still
that.
learning. Go ahead.
No, not only that. There's a gentleman. I want to say he lives in Pennsylvania. Maybe Jared might know better. I can't think of his name. His name actually might be Andrew, or I could be wrong. But either way, he is a national of the state, and he operates his own business. And he sells organic food. He trades with organic farmers. He has a website. I mean, this guy, he's not only a national of the state, he thrives. He's got wealth, I mean, he's not a millionaire. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But he thrives as a national of the state. So, I mean, he is one of the best examples. It's his own private business. He doesn't have a Social Security number. He doesn't pay taxes because only United States citizens pay taxes. There's taxpayers and non-taxpayers. You're a taxpayer if you're a U.S. citizen. And that's what the law says.
How about that? Wow, so this might actually be a great incentive for business owners then, you're saying. I mean, it sounds it. Because, I mean, the taxes in this country are sick. 30%, and that's if you're on the lowest tax bracket. It's more like 35% if you double that, if you get $90,000 a year in income or do sales.
Can I talk for a minute about one of the biggest pros to the whole premise? Well, as we all know, the federal government, all this oversight, right, is one of the biggest gripes everybody has. Well, the whole premise is that if enough people do this in each state, I'm not sure about the numbers specifically, but it's in the hundreds, I'm pretty sure, they can form what's called a plebiscite, which is basically like a political referendum or whatever, to reconvene the de jure legislatures. Now, what that means is that they would have to be recognized by the de facto government. And if the numbers tilted far enough to where there's more nationals than citizens, eventually, and this is part of the whole point, the bigger picture, is that the federal government would have no legs to stand on. They'd have no subjects. They'd have no funding. Who's going to listen to them? A peaceful revolution. It's a peaceful revolution. It's basically the way we figured out to do what the founders did by declaring independence. So to me, that's the biggest incentive. We're going to stop giving money to all these terrorist nations. We're going to stop militarily, fucking the world over, basically, for corporate interests. We're going to stop doing all this as communities, as states. And sure, the states can, enter into agreements. All our people can drive through your place, travel through your state. Well, what's stopping that? You don't need a federal tyrannical government to be able to drive to the next nation. All they need is some kind of treaty or agreement between each other. All right, exactly. I'll let somebody else go for a minute.
I got a couple questions. I'm just gonna ask a couple questions. Let's say I'm wanting to declare my nationality to my state now. What's the proper steps to get going? Can we get into that?
Anybody? I can get this if you guys, I think.
Yeah,
there's a lot of paperwork involved. Basically, you have to know what you're doing as far as drafting a legal document, and that's part of what we're doing with the 14th Amendment Center. We're just starting. We don't have a lot of funding. We have the Facebook site. We have a donation site. We're trying to get a little bit of money to go in for a website, but that's part of what the website is going to do. It's going to have an interactive program where we, kind of teach people the history, the premise, what was done, our heritage, and, even offer some free legal education so people have a little bit to start with. And we want to include the process. I can't tell you the whole thing you need to write out because I don't know off the top of my head. Everybody's situation is different, so everybody's going to have to, challenge different agencies that they've contracted with But basically all it is, knowing what you're doing, drafting the documents, being on good standing as far as having witnesses sign the documents and see you, make sure your intent is clear. That's what they scrutinize. If you're
that's the first step.
Right, that's the first step, and then go ahead. I'm sorry. You can.
No, I'm sorry. No, this is Andy, correct?
This is Andy. Yes.
Okay, Andy. This is Mark here. Just to clarify. So, correct me if I'm wrong. The process, once it's done, it's called the common law ID, correct? Is that
process?
Well, not the process, but what, like, your once it's done, your ID, it's called the common law ID?
I mean, you could call it that. I think that might be something People's Awareness Coalition came up with, but I guess if you have an ID and it's not de facto governmental, it would be a common law ID. But I don't know a whole lot about that yet. So go ahead. What was your question?
Well, I guess that was it. Like, I guess my thinking was that was what kind of what you have to do in order to break away from the federal, or on a federal level.
Right, you are from the federal government. The common law that the common law was the laws of England that were adopted to the colony. It included slavery, chattel slavery. They adopted, but nonetheless, that's the way the nation, not the nation, but the union and the laws progressed. So there is still that aspect of common law. The de facto has to recognize it. So I guess that's an accurate term, I would say.
All right.
I mean, I've been calling it a declaration of intent, or declaration of allegiance, the actual paperwork that you would file stating what nation you're claiming a nationality to and stating allegiance to, or whatever.
Okay, sure.
If I can just jump in right there real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a lot of anarchists listening who are right now they're saying, oh man, I have to show allegiance to a state, and well, let me just clarify real quick. Now, when we say a declaration of allegiance, that's simply a legal term. We're not saying you have to have allegiance to the government of a state. That's not at all what that means. Now,
there are no governments right now that are states.
Exactly. Now, let's say the de jure has been, taken out of exile. When we say allegiance to a state or to your nation, that is defined as the people of Massachusetts, the people of California. Right. Your allegiance to your common man. It has nothing to do with the government or even the de jure government. Your allegiance is with the people of your state, like, a Massachusetts, an Ohioan, a Californian. That's where the allegiance lies, because currently United States citizens have allegiance to their government, which, again, de facto insurgent government. So.
Well,
Andrew, I have a question for you, dude. If I were to go through with this and, relinquish my citizenship, U.S. citizenship and all that stuff, and do what you're saying, how would I, since at that point I'm not able to have a Social Security number, I'm not able to have a bank account, how would I sign up for something like AdSense? Would I do that prior to relinquishing my citizenship? Would I sign up with them, give them my bank account and all that shit, and then relinquish it?
All law is predicated on contracts. So if you're entering or are entered into a contract, currently, then that would be with your U.S. citizenship. Now, if you're planning on becoming a national of a state, you have to honorably, I'll use the word honorably, relinquish those contracts. So you basically have to have a fresh start. Now, as a national of a state, doing business with maybe Google or any other major corporation, that can be done, but that would be more of a deeper legal question. So again, like I would say something like you would have to contract privately with them, or maybe operate through a trust, and that's things that we're getting into at the 14th Amendment Center. So again,
So there is a workaround. There is a way. There is a loophole here. You're saying it is possible.
There are people who are nationals of the state who work for major corporations.
Okay.
Again, when you go to get a job, the only reason why you are part of an adhesion contract, your employer always has the upper hand because they write the contract, they write the terms and the conditions, and you accept. You always accept without knowing the full terms of the contract. That's the same thing as a U.S. citizen. You never really know the full terms of the contract because there's so many different contracts that are all binded together into one.
All right.
So that's basically what adhesion.
That's the main grounds of, to challenge all the contracts is that they were entered under, uninformed situation or fraudulent terms, whatever you want to call it. And it's worked for everybody that's done it so far.
All right, guys, I think we have a caller. I think we're going to patch him through.
We do have a caller, and I am going to answer it. Hello, caller. Can we get your name and where you're calling from?
Good evening, gentlemen. Savoy Rohde from Gulfport, Mississippi. Andy, how are you?
Good. How's it going, Savoy?
Hello.
How are you, gentlemen? I would just like to say, for somebody who is in the criminal justice field, I must commend what you are doing this evening. It is very informative and very prudent, and hope to hear more of it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Anything else, Savoy?
No, I mean, speaking to what I believe Andrew was speaking to earlier about contracts, especially with jobs, I think Andy and I both can attest to contracts and that you should always read the fine print, and the same goes for our laws and legislation. Unfortunately, what is desperately needed is more information out there and a better educated public. And I think what you guys are doing is very commendable and very wise, and I hope you continue with it and succeed as to where you're going with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody's support so far, and we hope it grows. And a lot of these questions we understand. We all had them at first too, like the driver's licenses and working bank accounts. A bigger part of the point is that the more people there are in your community that have the same standing, the easier it's going to become to work and to live comfortably. We don't want anybody to have to live in the freaking woods like Hunger Games or some shit. But we don't want to be killing the world and economically robbing everybody all over. It's the little things in life. So.
Yeah.
I mean, it's much more of a somebody. It's a big picture thing. You got to have a little foresight. Everybody's got to stop. Wanting to live off the dole, and get ready to live their own thing.
Right.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I saw something the other day on Facebook. It said, if you don't have an interest in politics, doesn't mean politics won't have an interest in you.
Right.
Now, the whole idea of what we're doing, is we're getting rid of politics. Because politics does not belong in, if you want to call it a Republican form of government. There's no such thing as politics.
Right.
Politics is for U.S. citizens. Freedom is for nationals of the state.
Politics is the soap opera that they put on for the citizens to blind us while the puppet masters pull all the money out of the economy behind them, basically.
Yep.
All right. Good, caller, sir, do you have anything else to ask or add?
Well, you mentioned that politics should have nothing to do with it, but the problem is trying to get people to understand that, especially those who have been loyal to the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, because I've spoken to many of these people, and trying to get them to understand that they're basically being screwed over is easier said than done. But then again, what you're doing is an effort in helping inform people. But again, you have these people who are slavishly devoted to their own ideologies of what these parties represent, and trying to get them to understand that, again, is like pulling teeth.
Well, I mean, I think that's the great part about this is that people can do what they think is right individually, as well
Agreed.
as on a larger scale. I don't think we're ever going to get shit done through either of these political gatekeeper parties.
No.
Because they both, obviously, they both represent the Federal Reserve and the corporate interests here. And, you know, they don't care about the people. They care about their own interests. So, but, you know, you're totally right. I don't expect everybody to catch on to this. The way I feel is this is the truth. The history is all verifiable. The law is all verifiable. I want people to know the truth. Even if they're not going to go for this, I want people to know what actually happened, how the Union was actually formed, and what happened during the Civil War and Reconstruction period. And, you know, even if people remain U.S. citizens, if they learn a little bit more about that, they learn a little law, that can help improve things too.
Exactly.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and people, what I just like to let people understand, like you said, even if they don't correct their status right away or they wait for other people to do it, you know, and this gets bigger and bigger, you know, people, you need to learn things. Like I like to tell people, like you look at 9/11, everyone still says, well, 9/11 was the biggest false flag in American history. Well, no. You know, the Civil War collectively was the biggest false flag in history. I mean, I'll even go on a limb and say it was the biggest false flag ever, because it completely changed the entire planet, not just the United States citizens. It really did change the planet. So, and I'm just, that's just the truth, and that's why this is so important. Like, I don't say that the 14th Amendment is the answer to everything, you know, for no reason. It really is. You know, the Federal Reserve, the income tax, perpetual warfare, you know, all of it. You know, all these terrible contracts that we're under all the time. Like I said, all laws predicated on contracts, and if they write all the contracts and they're a foreign, illegitimate government, what do you think? You know, are they going to be fair? Of course.
Andrew, let me get one thing straight here. I mean, it is going to take a lot of people to take that blind leap of faith into going into no citizenship, and it really will take the activist type of person to do it, because they have to be prepared for the type of resistance they're going to have to face. This isn't just going to be, you know, another day in the park, as they say. So, I mean... Can I jump in real quick? I really like this, though. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So part of what we're trying to do is create a documentary to show that this can be done. And none of us are rich. None of us are, you know, any way, shape, or form easily going to be without the system. But we're willing to do it because that's where our freedom lies. Now I'd rather be free than be subjugated. But part of our deal is to make a documentary to show people that this can be done, and show our interactions with the de facto government, and, you know, reinsure people that this is the good, that this is the remedy, and that by our consent is how, you know, how they gain so much control over us.
Right.
Well, dude, if you can make a really good documentary that gets the point across, then that would be everything. That's kind of what we need to wake people up.
No, that's exactly what we need. People, you know,
we're working on
people are for the most part fairly lazy, and they love documentaries. I love documentaries. You learn a lot from them.
I even have to fight myself to read, you know, after like the whole just being status quo or whatever. But yeah, I mean it's a valid question, and there, like I said, there's a couple hundred people already facing this kind of alienation, if you want to call it that. But another thing we're working to do is try to help people get together, get networked within, say, you know, you live in this state, you know, we can help network you with other people interested in this in your state. You can kind of have a community to support you as you learn before you even do the process. You know, and this way, we're already going to have support systems in place. You know, people that are going to be able to trade, barter, whatever you want to, you know, say. You know, but I think that's really important because it is scary if you're doing it as an individual. You know, you don't know of anybody else in your state and your nation. You're up against a lot. You know, but if you got 30 people in the same area as you got a lot better chance. You know.
Right.
Again, with like the police driving and stuff, a lot of these people notify the sheriff's department, like I said, and they'll, like if they're traveling in another area, they'll notify that. That's how the dynamic is now. So they have to kind of they value their freedom, obviously, if they've done this, so they want to keep it, you know. But I mean, yeah. So we're working on the website. We want to have an interactive system where people can go through and learn more about this, learn a little bit of law, and even learn how to do the process for themselves, if that's what they decide to go with, you know. We're on Facebook.com/Evil 14th Amendment. It's the number 14. On that one, we got Indiegogo. It's INDIE GoGo GOGO.com /project /14th, the word 14th -amendment -center. We're on Twitter at FAC FAC for freedom, the number 4, or Twitter.com /FAC for freedom. And we're eager to get on this. We really appreciate any kind of help or donations. There's some perks, like we're going to have T-shirts for certain levels of donations and such. The documentary is one of our main priorities because we all know nobody wants to sit there for hours and read anymore. So we're really working hard to try to condense all the most pertinent stuff into about an hour or so of good quality footage, and obviously that's not cheap. So anything anybody can offer is always appreciated. And we're going to do this whether we get funding or not. We're going to do whatever we can. We're dedicated to this. Our children deserve this. Well, I don't want my children.
We're all in. I mean, this is
where jail food for the prison industrial complex, because that's where it looks like it's going. That's going to be the best job in 20 years. Inmate, But
you can't have FEMA with U.S. citizenship, or should I say, the FEMA can only exist with the federal government. So,
right.
Just like federal prisons, just like the income tax, just like the Federal Reserve, that's the main initiative here, is to remove the federal jurisdiction, which doesn't belong there in the first place, and give people back, their rightful place. I mean, their rightful standing, their birthright. And we're just trying to do it through education, and we're hoping people, want to catch on. And, we're not saying, go and expatriate tomorrow. That's not what it's about. We want people just to learn, know the truth, and then make the best decision for themselves. And we hope that decision is to restore freedom. Again, so that communities can come together, so that maybe 20 or 30 nationals of a state that are in one state together, they can network and help rebuild for people who are still U.S. citizens. So that's really the goal, and, that's the end game.
And they can all travel around in a gang of cars at first, so they can, have some sense of security. Armored wagons or something, I'm kidding. But
the more of us that we get, the easier it'll be.
Right. Strength in numbers,
Yeah.
There's a little community in Australia. It's a farming community, and it was basically like a collaborative. They were part of Australia, a collaborative of farmers whose properties all adjoined, right? And they did all this research, laws of nations and international law and everything. And they basically told the Australian government that they were declaring independence, and that now they're recognized as a nation. And it's still kind of iffy, They haven't been able to get them with taxes or anything like that. And they've been at this for 20 years, over 20 years. I can't remember the name of it. There was a Wired magazine article about it. And I'm sure if you look it up, But anyway, there's stuff like this going on all over the world. I mean, we know a lot of the rest of the world is restless, a lot more than Americans. And they're out there in the streets burning shit. And this is like the most peaceful way. I mean, it's totally peaceful. You're filing papers, You're not doing anything destructive. That's the last resort, We don't want to.
We're using the administrative default process,
right?
Which is staying in honor and putting them on the spot, making them rebut what we know is the truth, and they won't rebut it. They don't want to. They don't want to expose their own fraud.
And that's going back to what we were saying earlier. For people who are concerned about court, the point here is that the courts won't answer because, of course, for some of you who don't know, there's a thing that's called unpublished court cases. And if you're really good at doing internet searches, you can actually find unpublished court cases. Now, if a national of a state goes into a courtroom, you're probably not even going to have an unpublished court case, never mind a published court case, because if it's a court of record and they published it, well, now it's a premise. Now it's part of law. So, you can go back to it and cite it. Now, that's the beauty of it all, is they can't hear, first of all, they can't really hear the cases because they don't have jurisdiction in the matter. But then you have maybe an unpublished court case, which they won't even do that, because then you can go back to the unpublished court case and say, hey, look, see, this is my court case. It's not published, it's not quote-unquote official, but here it is, they're admitting it right here. So that's the safety of even taking it into court. In that sense, court can be your best friend, even though it's your worst enemy.
Yep.
And that's another thing we're working for. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add on to the jurisdiction part of that. And the whole premise of being a national of the state is under this victimless, I call it equity crime, because it's basically via contract. And no state can impair the obligation of contracts, and that's where the snag is. But anyway, personam jurisdiction is where they have jurisdiction over your person, and that's what makes you liable for these victimless crimes such as jaywalking or smoking some weed or something like that, you know what I mean? Yeah. So under the 14th Amendment, if you read the 14th Amendment, it states the word person, and widely enough, it's been interpreted to include corporations and other legal entities, and it is a legal entity. And that's the problem. That's what people don't really understand. Even all those Democrats that want to create a new amendment abolishing corporate personhood do not realize that the whole premise of corporate personhood comes from the 14th Amendment. If you read Hugo Black, he spoke about it in 1938. I forget the court case. Look on our Facebook page, it's on there, I'm pretty sure. But that legal entity makes you liable. That's the personam jurisdiction.
Right. Hey guys,
that's exactly what we're getting away from.
Let's hold up here. We're going to take a quick break and we'll come back.
All right.
Are you tired of games that are fun? Yes, me too. Fun sucks! Stand aside, action and excitement. There's a new sheriff in town, and his name is Farmville! From milking cows to putting chickens in coops, this game pushes the limits of the imagination. Backwards! Here's a taste of the action. Farmville! It's about damn time. It's just like being a real farmer, only without the benefit. Farmville! Play Farmville to get out of dealing with issues, spending time with your children, or farming. Farmville! Where did the time go? Farmville! Designed by Kronos himself to alleviate the burden of time. Farmville! Just listen to these testimonials from my mom. Hey Mom, what do you think of Farmville?
What?
Farmville! What do you want for your birthday, little girl? Farmville cash! Worth as much as real money, after it accidentally dropped into a volcano! Farmville! What's that? You found a golden chicken, posted on Facebook to alienate your friend! Farmville! Old MacDonald had a Farmville! Hey Toby, could you run up to the... Farmville! Somebody help me stop saying Farmville!
Try holding your breath.
Farmville!
I learned about hippies when I moved to Boulder. I like them in theory.
Yeah.
I like them in theory. I don't like a lot of people that are asking for money all the time. I find that shit to be very annoying. I don't like people playing shitty songs and wanting $1.
Right.
You know, for the most part they're cool, but you know, there's too much of that hippie movement that wants people to help them, you know, and this is how I feel about that. If I felt like everybody was on the ball and everybody was doing their best, and, you know, I'm a generous person, and I think one of the things about being generous is you have the opportunity to do so. It feels really good to be generous, especially if it doesn't affect you. It's not like you're being generous and it's hurting you, you know, so I think it's important, but in passing, like, say you're passing love to the left, and there's a big circle of people, man. The real problem is there's a lot of fucking people that never keep passing the love. They take it and then they walk away. You know, there's some people that are always there for you. There's some people and they're doing their best and they're living their life, and you're doing your best and you're living your life and you're helping each other. And you, hey man, can I borrow your truck? I gotta move. Fuck yeah, man, come on over, dude. Anytime, you got my shit. You know, we're friends. You help me, I help you. We're all together. But we all know the few people that don't contribute. They always need something and they don't contribute. And my experience, that's my experience with hippies. That's my experience with a lot of people that, you know, are like really into like socialist ideals. A lot of it is because they're fucking lazy, man. They're fucking lazy and they don't work that hard and they don't do their part. And they somehow or another feel like the whole system's unfair, man. Which, fuck yeah, of course it is. Of course it's unfair. Of course it's corrupt. Of course it's fucked up. But that's not why you're a loser. There's a lot of people that aren't losers. Most people are losers because they're lazy as shit. And they want to blame other people for that. And they want to blame society. And they want to blame... Look, society is completely fucked. But guess what? It's not like there's one person that makes it fucked. The whole thing is... It's fucked because it's on a foundation of bullshit. It doesn't make any sense. But knowing that, you see what it is, make your path. Make your path. Figure out something that you can do to feed yourself. Okay? Figure out something you can do to put a roof over your head. Just figure it out, man. Fucking figure it out. It doesn't mean you have to be a fucking asshole to be successful. It doesn't mean you have to be a part of the system, man. No, just stop asking people for money. Stop being a fucking mooch. Get your shit together, okay? That's my problem with hippies.
That was some break. Who's all still here? Everybody?
Yep. I'm here.
All
yeah,
right,
I'm here. I couldn't get myself unmuted. I'm sitting here talking and no one's saying anything. Yeah, my shit's still running slow, but hey, I'm here. I was asking Andrew there. I played another Rogan clip for you, so I figured you might like the one about the hippies and the socialists. or hippies. Hippies are socialists, so I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Mostly.
They turn into that. I mean, if anything. Just as liberals have turned into socialists.
Joe Rogan's right on the money with that, though.
You know.
Yeah, he's spot on.
Right on, yeah.
Socialists are some of the scariest people on the planet because all of their ideas sound so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone loves free shit. Not everyone, but a lot of people do.
Right.
It's going to be complete utopia.
But the problem is it usually means that they're masking the source of the shit itself. You know what I'm saying?
We kind of spoke about this a few days ago, about Abby Hoffman and how the hippies back in the day were kind of like on the socialist, like leaning towards socialism. But back then, they were at least more innocent than the ones today. That was my defense, at least. I was trying to defend them.
That's what it seemed like. They just wanted to lay around and get high and bang all the time. And
in the 60s. Right, in the 60s.
It wasn't like they wanted to, like, subjugate the whole world to Marxism like they do now.
Right. Exactly. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Hey, guys. I'm actually traveling down the road here, and I have to cut trees in the morning, so I might have to actually cut this a little bit short for myself. I don't know what the other guys are going to do, but...
I can
tell him my girl just got home, and I don't have to watch my son, which was kind of a pain earlier, but yeah, I wanted to say something. Personally for me, when I started researching law, even before that, you know, I started watching documentaries. One of the first ones I watched was Loose Change. And I don't want to get into 9/11. I mean, everyone can draw their own opinion of that. But it opened my eyes, and I started questioning things. And I started hearing about the 14th Amendment. And I was of the opinion, it's rights. That's a great thing.
Right.
And I learned more about it, and I sat down and I went to the Cornell website, which you can Google, the 13th and 14th Amendment. And this is what definitively proved to me what it was. And if you read the 13th Amendment, it says slavery nor involuntary servitude. And it kind of struck me, like, isn't that the same thing, involuntary servitude? Why would they even mention that? And then you read the 14th Amendment, it says U.S. citizens are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And to be subject to something means you're voluntarily subject to it. So from my understanding, that's when I had my paradigm shift. I was like, no shit. You know, they wrote it right out in front of us. You know, best place to hide some things in plain sight.
Right.
Voluntary servitude.
So they gave us a way to opt out. Like you said, it's right in front of us.
Exactly. And one day before the 14th Amendment was quote-unquote ratified, and I'll use that term very loosely, because it never technically was. They passed the Expatriation Act of 1868, and that was our way out. They gave us, as soon as you turned age of majority, which back then was 21, and it was converted to 18 shortly thereafter, if I remember correctly, but that was our way out of federal citizenship. Not everyone was a federal citizen when the 14th Amendment was quote-unquote ratified. There were still state citizens, and I'm of the opinion until about 1933 when the bankruptcy occurred, that's when the big shift happened. You know, and Social Security Act came out, and no state shall impair the obligation of contracts. You know, and we subject ourselves by filing for all their benefits. You know, freedom, I can't think of the word, freedom and, I can't think of the word, but relying on something, those are that's an inverse relationship. The more you rely on something, the less free you are.
Right,
that's exactly what the federal government wants.
Yeah, the maximum law. He who receives a benefit bears a disadvantage.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. Well, they want us relying on them. You know, they want us relying on the government.
But
they want everybody to rely on the government.
They want us to
that's exactly what communism is. The form of communism that they want, or if you want to call them globalists, the form they want is where the government gets so big, you know, and they're then able to control the public even more than they already are. I mean, what we have now is a cakewalk, you know. Mm-hmm. But obviously we all understand where we're headed, and that's exactly the form that they wish to perfect.
Of course. So Andrew, I want to go back to something that you had said earlier about about anarchists and not wanting to declare the state and being against the state and whatnot. I would think that like a true anarchist would want to declare their nationality to get away, because other than that they're you're going to be property of the federal government. So I mean, you'd actually be taking a step away from, or closer to, true freedom. So I'm just what I'm trying to say is I think like, everybody would want to do this. After looking into it and studying it, and no matter which way you kind of lean, it seems to make sense to break away from them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but again, like, I think just the way anarchists look at things, I've spoken to a lot of anarchists who have listened to my perspective on the 14th Amendment, and, a lot of them agree, some of them don't, but ultimately, they always go back to saying that they want no rulers, that there should be no borders, all these things that sound good, and they may look good on paper, but again, you can't settle disputes with absolutely no law, absolutely no rule. So that's one of the things I press. And again, once you say that, it kind of destroys their argument, because, all you got to do is say, well, what if somebody kills your sister? There has to be a remedy for that. And you can't just say, well, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Maybe in the legal system you can have that, but without the legal system, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth just becomes mayhem, and that's why people do twist anarchy to say it means mayhem. That's not without substance. Now, I'm not saying anarchy is completely bad, but I'm saying, I personally believe in law. I believe in law that benefits people, because if you know how to use the law, it can benefit you. I'm not saying the current form, the private, Roman civil law, that is not a benefit for anybody. It may appear that way, in civil disputes or things like that, but, that's neither here nor there. The point is, what we're talking about, the de jure, the de jure government, true freedom, that is still in existence. We just have to have access to it.
Okay, sure.
And I'd like to add on to that, too. Andrew mentioned Roman civil law, and that's has to do with the law of persons. And that goes back to, crimes being done against the state. I'm sure all of us here have had some kind of ticket or something, and who is the plaintiff? Was it the state? What is that?
Hey, yeah.
Can you punch the state in the face? I mean, the whole basis of common law was that that someone brings charges against you for something you did against their person or their property. I mean, a physical person, a man, a woman. And we've completely gone away from that. Jaywalking, what does that hurt? I mean, if you get hit by a car, that's your fault for being stupid. I mean, we, look both ways, cross the road. It's all good. But that Roman civil law, growing a plant is illegal. I mean, collecting rainwater in Oregon is illegal. A guy did 30 days in jail for collecting rainwater on his own property. And that's the pitfall of the Roman civil law, is they just create absolute laws. It's legislative absolutism. And at what point does everything become illegal?
Right.
It's like Marx said, the more corrupt the government becomes, the more it legislates. To the point where sneezing, you get a fine for sneezing because it produces revenue. But I think that's a really good point about the, what Jared was bringing up. And, all right, I'll let somebody else go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that, again, going back to the civil disputes, like, it seems the average person who isn't awake or doesn't know anything about law or doesn't know, anything that goes on, they actually believe that it's a good system. I have civil rights, and it seems like a really great system, and that's the very reason why they're able to do it. They did it at the perfect time, again, like Jared said, the real change, the final nail in the coffin, and with the bankruptcy and all that, which really captured everyone. Obviously they were able to confiscate gold. They were able to do things that they have never been able to do in the 1830s, 1840s. Of course, that was only a couple of years after the Revolution, but again, that's with the Roman Civil Law. That's why they're able to do this. Common law or natural rights, that's not something that's very easy to practice because that's complete self-responsibility. And, if you're going to have this Roman Civil Law or the government being your daddy, it's not so hard to operate through life that way because there's always like people say, well, why doesn't the government bail me out? Why does GM get bailed out? Well, that's really not that true of a statement because the government is always going to bail you out. Yeah, they're going to lock you in prison and throw you away. But at the same time, as a U.S. citizen, you actually do get bailed out, and you may not even notice it. That's part of the Benefits and Privileges program because it's a three-party general limited partnership, like with a marriage. It's you, your wife, and the government. So the government's there to regulate the marriage so that your wife or your husband can take away all your property, and when the contract's terminated. So they're always there to be your parent. And a lot of people, again, who are not awake and who do not understand this think that's actually a good system. In a natural rights sort of way, contracts are much more strict, and you have to have strict liability. You are your own insurance, so your word is your bond. That's what a bond is all about. So that's just one extra tidbit I wanted to add.
Okay. I think the point about anarchy, that this is like probably the closest thing to it right now. That's a very valid point. And if my whole thing is, I believe in the right of the people. The power to govern is derived from the consent of the people, right? So if a bunch of people in, say, Minnesota, the nation of Minnesota, expatriated, claimed the nationality of Minnesota, decide to have a plebiscite, and the majority of them voted for anarchy, to have no fundamental system whatsoever, that's their right. I think if the people decide that, and I don't know how much we can leave it to their judgment, but anybody who's able to go through this process, learn the law and stuff like that, has probably got a little bit of discernment. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's their right.
Well, I guess what I was saying is anybody that can view anarchy as a positive aspect and as a positive thing, why wouldn't they want to go through this and break away from at least get away from the federal government at the very least? Because any true anarchist, it's not, won't tell you that there is no laws. That's just, I think people. It's silly.
I think people like it because it's, and I hate to say this, I don't want to offend anybody. I got friends that are into this ideology. We all go through different, but I think it's kind of like an armchair activism. You've got this intangible idea that really even they don't see how to institute it, how to implement it. So you really don't have to do anything except talk about anarchy on Facebook or
Right.
And
right.
This
sure.
whole thing, this is a lot of work. You got to change your lifestyle. There's dedication. I'm not saying they're all like that. I'd say maybe as a general rule of thumb, I think that's why people tend to gravitate towards anarchists, because it's kind of like an abstract. It's like a war on drugs. These drugs have M16s and they're shooting at us. We got to fight them. It's not really a real war. It's it's an abstract idea. But again, like I said, it's first of all, it would be the closest thing. Right now, the nationals of the states have no government. They have
it'd be a great step. It'd be a great
I asked
for anybody that wants
who really
to.
knows a lot about this. If a state, if people, claim the state, enough people got a legitimate legislature going, and they decided they wanted to be a monarchy, and elect a king or whatever. Wouldn't that be legit? Because that follows the laws of nations. The people institute the government, and people that have been in this, they were kind of hesitant, but they eventually agreed that that's a right. We don't want people to get that idea though, because generally, one sovereign with all the power over a whole nation doesn't work out well. From what we've seen.
Well, no.
But
that's pretty much exact.
Right, but my whole thing is people should have the choice. it's like after the 14th Amendment, there's another thing that we want to get into teaching people. The imperialism of the American Empire just like took off, I mean, you look at they got all those Caribbean islands around that time. Puerto Rico was, basically taken over. Didn't become an unincorporated territory till like the 50s or whatever. Hawaii is a good example. Hawaii was a peaceful kingdom. They even the United States had treaties with them up until the late 1800s. I think it was 1893 when the minister to Hawaii from the United States conspired. And now I'm learning that it was with a bunch of U.S. settlers. Some of them were from the Dole dynasty, the Dole fruits and whatnot. And basically they brought in the U.S. Navy. They conspired. They overthrew the legitimate government. And they basically just held it as a captive territory. I mean, the way I see it now is like it's all neo-colonialism. It's like we're all colonies of this New World Order. The federal government's just a control mechanism in our branch, in our neck of the woods,
Sure.
I mean, the UN, obviously, the UN and all these organizations are that whole, instituted after the World War II by, the Axis of allies, Basically, we won. We own the world now, and here's Israel for you people, and
You're right with that, and it's curious that you say that because Americans today, we don't have the same privileges we did back then, and we have all these now that the president, our government can kill any citizen they want, with you don't get a phone call, no trial, no lawyer, you don't get to tell any of your family members. They can just assassinate you. They don't even have to kidnap you. So really, expatriating might even be a safer route than staying a citizen anymore.
I mean,
no, absolutely.
A lot of people have gotten into this, and we've said physics or physics. They can either drone you as a citizen or they can drone you as a national. But one of those two, they didn't have a legal right to drone you, and that's as a national. As a citizen, they kind of actually have a legal right to do it, which is terrible to think or to say, but it's part of that contract. You're an enemy, they determine you may be a suspected enemy of the state, whatever. But you're right, and all this presidential shit, the president never had power to write law or make any kind of effect over the states, or especially other places in the world. But all these, in control of the military through executive orders and whatnot, that's all done under Emergency Powers Act. I mean, there's a 1973 Senate report. They review these constant states of emergency every couple years, and the one in 73 gets really graphic. They talk about, in one way or another, the American people have been under a state of martial law since the Civil War. That's, what it says verbatim. And it also says, since 33, this whole FDR New Deal fiasco, from 33 to 73, they were under 4 different constant states of national emergency. They call it national. Federal government took over. Currently, we may still be under all those. I know Clinton put one into effect with regard to Iran, is what it's titled. And every president since has renewed it. Current president renewed it in 2012, I believe. But I read the executive order on the White House website itself, and it was right there, clear daylight. I mean, these powers, executive order he wrote, we can confiscate anything, basically, it says. If we feel it's a national priority, we can come take your factory, your farm, all your assets, whatever we want, if it benefits the federal government. And we know
What's
how
the
honest
benefit of being subject to the jurisdiction thereof?
Exactly. It's one of the terms of the contract. I don't think any contract should fool you into getting killed or robbed, but I didn't make the rules, so, this is where we're at. We're trying to help people understand and combat this really evil... the bankers put it into motion in the 1850s.
Right.
That's obviously what happened, because the following, all they did was imperialize and subjugate, tax, everything they could do, take people's gold, like you said. It's all so outrageous,
Sure.
But
I mean, this is the bottom. The very bottom line is we're property of the government.
Right.
by our own
being
consent.
Citizens
corporation. Yeah, citizens.
Nationals, very debatable. They're not property of the government as far as the laws.
They're the creators of the government. And the federal citizen was never contemplated by those who founded the United States. I mean, it didn't exist till 1868. It says so in Black's Law Dictionary. I mean, all the evidence is out there if you're willing to look for it. I mean, it's just amazing.
The 14th Amendment all over the Supreme Court opinions, state Supreme Court opinions. Just it's everywhere. And I'm not lost my train of thought. Anybody else got anything to add?
Yeah, I do. I recently read it's an expose by a man named A.H. Ellett. He was a justice of the Utah Supreme Court, and he was very anti-14th Amendment. He did a lot of research into it. Anyway, he wrote this expose in regard to a court case called Diet v. Turner. It was in 1968. It's about 100 pages or so, and he gets in, it's probably one of the best pieces I've ever read in regard to the 14th Amendment and what it has done. He goes through the Lieber Code, which was basically how the law martial started, right around the start of the Civil War. And that's what gave the executive all its power to do what it did and what it has done.
Right.
And if anyone out there wants to, you could simply Google it. Just Google Ellett, Justice Ellett, non-ratification 14th Amendment, and it should be on the first page. Absolutely.
We also have
great
this
read.
on the Facebook page for 14th Amendment thing.
Yeah, we'll load up some stuff tonight for people listening who want to take it upon themselves and just do a little reading. I mean, it's great stuff. I mean, you'll be blown away that it's written by people in the government.
Right.
I mean, it's hidden in plain sight. That's such shit.
Go ahead and let everyone know where they'll be able to find all that. And plug anything that you want to plug.
All right, well, we're on Facebook. It's the 14th Amendment Center. We're on Twitter at FAC, F-A-C, 4, the number 4, FAC for Freedom. We're on Indiegogo. That's our donation site. We appreciate everybody. Anything anybody can do. It's indiegogo.com/projects/ all words 14th-amendment-center. And that's all we got going so far. We're working on a lot more stuff. So if you stay tuned, donate what you can. If you believe in our cause and you want to help, we'd always appreciate. We're going to make everybody feel rewarded once we get this thing going.
There you go.
Awesome. Even I think Eddie said it earlier. We're irregardless if we get donations, we're pursuing it. I mean,
we're gonna have to
all in.
Keep in touch.
Awesome.
We're gonna have to keep in touch. You do it about.
For sure. And we'll get you guys back on again. I know a lot of people like hearing about this. I've been getting messages all night. Just people are excited to actually hear about it. It's been a while since we've done a show.
Great.
To do with the 14th Amendment, but it's important, and and we try to mention it, in the shows here and there. Anyway, we always like to throw it out there, but it's good to get all three of you guys on.
Same here. It's got a huge response.
Wow, I'm great. I'm really glad. I was just reading. I learned a new fact earlier about incorporated rights through the 14th Amendment. Believe it or not, none of the Bill of Rights provisions were ever held against the states before the 14th Amendment was implemented, and long after court cases. Anyway, I learned that the legal foundation for political lobbying, we know that's a big citizen activity. We're all politically lobbied. That's built off First Amendment right to redress grievances. And that's just a great example of how corporations totally hijacked the 14th Amendment. There's a great article on our page called Hijacking the 14th Amendment by attorney in California, Keith Hammerstrom, I believe his name is. And that really gets into detail about how corporate lawyers jumped on every little, precedent they saw. First, it made them persons, Everybody within the whole federal union is person, everything's persons. And that's how they gained so much suffrage and so much power. And, up to Citizens United, there's been so many cases. It's unbelievable. I just thought I'd throw that in. Anybody else got anything else they want to mention?
Is Andrew still with us?
Yeah, I am. I was just listening for once.
I saw that you were still connected. I didn't know if you put it on mute or whatever, just listening or what.
Yep, I'm still here, but I know I have to go. I gotta wake up and cut trees in the morning, but
we're wrapping up the show anyway, man. So you did a good job, man. You made it through the whole show. That's awesome. we appreciate it. Glad that we can get you on.
We really appreciate you guys having us and letting us talk and really just sharing with people, what we've learned, and we just want to make this knowledge expand and go. I mean, it's so paramount, it's unreal. I forget who said it earlier, but every little news article, everything you read, you can tie it back to the 14th Amendment. NDAA, them raising the debt limit, Federal Reserve nonsense, QE 15, you know what I mean? It's unreal.
A lot of it couldn't have been without that martial law under the Lieber Code. I believe Jared was talking about it earlier. None of the stuff they do could have ever happened, really. I don't know for sure, but I have the opinion the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional based on the original Constitution provisions, for amending and whatnot. The only way they may have been able to get that through is under the martial law, because we're still under that martial law. And that's how there's no longer de jure states. The federal government has political subdivisions. The courts say it themselves, and this is how the 10th Amendment is basically obsolete at this point. Because there's no 10th Amendment state citizens. They weren't created by the 10th Amendment, but that's who it refers to. The people, not the person. It never says people in 14th Amendment. It only says person.
Persons.
That's another thing people should look into, find out, and that's corporate personhood, Corporations are not living, breathing, organic things, but somehow the 14th Amendment gave them all the rights intended for living, breathing men and women. So, I mean, it's really unbelievable. There's a lot to research. We really appreciate everybody's attention, listening to us blabber on for long. And, continued support for the cause. Because it's really important. Yeah, I mean, it's really important to us. It seems like everybody wants this change. A lot of people have different ideas about how to facilitate the change. And we're just of the opinion that they're all wrong and we're right. Like everybody else. But we have very good substantiated evidence. All the laws there, all the grounds are there. I mean, I'm a very skeptical guy myself. The other guys can tell you that I was annoying them with same questions everybody asks. What about driving? What about, how am I going to pay my tax? All this stuff. I was dumbfounded. Well, I stuck with it, and that's what really made the difference for me. A lot of people drop off.
Yeah, you got to. You got to stick with it. Yeah, really? Absolutely. You're not going to learn about it. You're nothing's going to get done if you give up on it like that. No, for sure, man. And I mean, the law itself, whatever your status is very important because that's how they get over on a lot of people. Like Andrew said, he got all these driving without license. Well, how did he beat those? It was probably through means that most people don't know. And that's what the system's about. They're going to get revenue from most of the people they try to snag. Mm-hmm. And, it's
I don't know specifically all the techniques and everything. I'm still learning all the procedure and stuff myself. But even if people just learn that would make for a better society, And anything you do, any kind of relationship you have that involves money is contractual. How do people know what they're doing when they get a job if they don't know how contracts work? How do people know what they're signing away when they enter the military? Think about that. 18-year-old kids. Another thing, I was listening while you guys were talking about the Pledge of Allegiance, and I have this whole rant I like to give. It's not really a rant, but, a thesis. In my study of law, international law, law of inheritance of status and whatnot, it seems that children, because they're not of age of majority and not competent in many areas, aren't allowed to determine an allegiance, right? Like, if you're 10 and you live here, you can't be like, I'm going to France and I'm going to declare an allegiance to France.
Right.
France won't have it. The U.S. won't have it because you're not age of majority. So what kind of ethics is it to stand kids in front of that flag every day and brainwash them into something they're not even competent enough, according to the law or most reasonable people, to make a decision about? Well, if it was really that great, would you have to do that? Couldn't you just be like, once they're 18, guess what? Here's U.S. citizenship, new and improved. No, I feel the same way about religion. I don't want to get into it too much, but I think people should wait till they're older, till they have a little better understanding of life, a little more experience, to make a decision. Otherwise, they're, people are walking on water, changing water to wine, and that's the fact. That's how physics works. You just got to be special. I mean, I love everybody, whatever creed you are, Don't take me wrong. I just want people to be free and know why they're not free and how to get free. That's pretty much it. But I think the whole, Pledge of Allegiance, I'm totally against that. I said it when I was a kid. I didn't sit down and have to go to court or nothing like that, but I didn't know any better. And now once I realized, and I got a 10-year-old son myself, and tells me, do you know about the Pledge of Allegiance? And I recite it for him because I, brainwashed into me, programmed, as they would say. He said, how do you know that? And I said, I had to say it every day when I went to that damn place. But I've told him now, he kind of gets it. He's like, yeah. He's like, I can't buy alcohol, I can't drink, I can't vote. Why do I have to pledge an allegiance? And I think that's another place we've got to start, is educating the young people. The young people, they got, especially with this Common Core bullshit.
Oh God.
I don't know a whole lot about it. All I know is that it's federally, it's a federal project, and that's bad. And what
I'll tell you one thing about Common Core, guy. I was bashing it at first, and I had my 10th grade history teacher, who I completely respect, and he came on and attempted to explain that what it does is it's supposed to prepare the kids in a way for their logic and prepare their logic to be able to accept trigonometry and calculus and all that a lot easier. It's supposed to prepare you basically for calculus and the more advanced. And if that's the case, then I can understand it. But I just want people to be at our fucking grocery stores to be able to do basic math when they, it's really embarrassing.
I mean, I can consider that theory totally. I'm not the type of person, that's bullshit because it's from some status quo. I'll consider it. But has anybody seen that in effect?
Right.
I know one great way to get kids ready for that. Teach them a musical instrument. And what programs have been reduced from schooling most? Art, music, creativity.
Art,
I mean, it's scientifically proven that kids that learn musical theory, music at a young age, excel at more things. I mean, I was never classically trained, but I've been playing guitar since I was freaking 12, And I do it for fun. I'm not professional or nothing. But
music or learning a second language, I hear.
Right. It's a universal language, Because if you play an instrumental for somebody that doesn't speak English, they'll still get it, won't they? Oh, the beat, boop, boop, bop, bop, come on.
Right.
For sure.
It is universal. But all I'm saying is that that'll teach kids better than some kind of Common Core brainwashing. Like I said, I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm willing to look into it, consider what it's got to offer. But I know the public schools don't always have a public benefit in mind, and I know the federal government's a little worse than them usually. Right. So that leads me to believe that it's got insidious intent behind it.
Yeah.
But again,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know everything. I just try to absorb and, aggregate what
Sure.
I believe to others.
All right, guys. All three of you guys, man, thanks for taking the time to come on. It was a great show. I know people are happy that we had this, and eventually we'll get you guys back on.
It's been great being on. We really appreciate you having us. Let us know when you want us to come back. We'd love to do it again.
Absolutely.
Thanks everybody for listening out there. And peace and freedom.
Yeah. And
Good night.
please check our Facebook page. We post stuff daily for people to chew on and just start thinking. Use that brain matter between your ears. That's all we really want.
For sure. Thank you, guys.
Right on.
Guys, have a good night.
All right, you guys have been great. You have a good evening.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Take care.
Awesome. Great show.
Definitely.
All right, you're ready to go into a commercial or not? Same with that music.
Well, yeah. No, we don't really have time now.
We don't. No, 3 minutes left. All right.
I was actually gonna play something, and I was like, now we only got 3 minutes left, so I guess I can't. So.
Right.
So.
Right on.
Yeah, I guess that's the way it worked out. But yeah.
Oh, I got a bunch of my questions answered.
Hell yeah, man. Me too. I feel good about it. I mean, this is promising. I'm actually liking this idea now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have them back on, and we'll talk more about it. We could have kept going, but
Dude, seriously, if you're self-employed, you got to pay 30% taxes, and that's if you make under $50,000. It's like $35,000 or something. That's crazy, man. That's enough to make me want to move to another country.
Mhm.
I mean, really.
That's a lot, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole lot, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's only 15% if you're working for someone else, but if you're working for yourself, you have to pay the total amount.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. It's not right. It's not right at all. I mean, there's no way. I mean, if Paul got elected, then you could at least, opt out of the Social Security, so that's 15% less, and he would have shut down the IRS, so we would have to pay no taxes.
Right.
Dream world.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. That would have been the perfect world, right?
For real. Unreal.
Well, guys, it's been good.
All right.
Another great show in the books. On Thursday we have Sir James Robert Wright again.
Awesome.
Exiled 32nd degree Freemason.
Oh wow! This again.
Yeah, so we got him back on. I mean, we always got a lot to talk. Every time we have him on, we never get to finish talking. So I talked to him today to see if he wanted to come back on, and yeah, he wants to come back on. So we'll get into some more stuff. We'll cover a little bit of what we covered before, just since we had James on, we've actually picked up a few thousand more listeners each night anyway. So we got a lot more people now. So we'll get into some stuff. Y'all hear some stuff that you probably never heard before. And yeah, so that's that. And on Tuesday, I might as well say it now. Tuesday we have Josie Wales back on.
Nice.
So, yes, so we got Josie back on. That'll be a good show, of course. And that's as far as I got planned right now.
All right, good. 15 seconds left on the show.
Yeah, so thanks for listening, everybody. Everyone have a good night. You guys have a good night.
All right,
good night.
Have a good one, guys.